All right, now thoughts on the game. Let's go.
Thoughts on the game? Listen, Thom, in that pregame show and really last week, we talked about, can the Bengals win a muddy game? Can they scheme up a muddy game? I didn't see dirt. I didn't see anything out there even semblancing a muddy game. They dropped Jake Browning back in his debut as a starter damn near 30 times and only hand the ball off to their Pro Bowl running back 8 times. I don't know how that is a recipe for success ever, let alone for a guy that's been wandering around the NFL for 5 years and he's finally getting his first start. And look, I had, after Jake Browning's performance on Thursday Night Football, I had a little bit more hope for him. I thought that there was some athleticism there, and maybe he could run a little bit. He didn't even run the ball. I think he had 3 runs for 9 yards. So I don't understand how going into that game, a National Football League head coach, a National Football League offensive coordinator, guys that have had a lot of success in this league over the past few years, decided that the proper game plan was to drop back a guy who has, once again, making his National Football League starting debut, drop him back 30 times and don't commit to the run at all. It was, Thom, it was honestly like Zach Taylor was sticking his middle finger to the fans. Because all season long, with Joe Burrow back there, fans, media members have said this team has to find its running identity. What is this team's running identity? And they don't even come close to showing anything like that. It was truly like he was saying F you to the fans, said, hey, I know more than you guys know, and he does, right? I'm not going to claim to know more than Zach Taylor or Brian Callahan or anything. But I know that in that situation, against a team where you're going to be into the thick of it, because that's how the Steelers play, right? It's a low-scoring game more often than not. I don't know how you don't commit yourself to running the ball, giving it to the experienced guy that has been a multiple-time Pro Bowler, that has rushed for thousands of yards in the league, and instead you're going to put it all on Jake Browning, who's running for his life against a good pass rush. This was an opportunity for Zach Taylor, as much as it was for Jake Browning, to really cement kind of a showing, right? Kind of cement, legacy's not the right word, but cement that he can win this game, that he can scheme a win. And he failed miserably on the first game of the rest of this season.
You know, look, spot on. I want to get everybody else's thoughts on this game too. You know, it's not only Mixon the 8 carries, okay? There are a couple other things here. You had 10 days now to try and change this whole thing. It's not like you played on a Monday night, you're playing on a Sunday. You had played on the prior Thursday. You knew this wasn't a wait-and-see kind of thing on Burrow. He's out for the year, and you knew it the day after the season, or the day after last Friday.
Right.
You knew that going in. So that's one. 2, they give it to Mixon 8 times. They've got Travion Williams, and they have Chase Brown, who is back healthy. He was asked after the game, are you healthy? He said, I wouldn't have played if I wasn't 100%. They don't touch the ball in the run game. And having all year, you've gone more than half a season without finding out if anybody else on your roster can play running back besides Joe Mixon. Elliot, your thoughts on yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday, unfortunately, was as big of a disaster as you could possibly imagine. I think if you look at the Bengals, you lose Joe Burrow, and you're like, okay, you know what? The season's kind of a wash. We lost our guy, but I can live with it because if we don't have Joe Burrow, what are we, right? Well, we found out yesterday what we are without Joe Burrow, and that is nothing. We are garbage, trash. I watched that game in its entirety. It was disgusting all the way through. Jake Browning. And again, I was like Reed. I actually had hope for Jake Browning in the game. I thought he was a serviceable quarterback given the circumstances. He wasn't good. He was okay. Right. I would say a lot of his yards. I mean, he should have had 2 interceptions. Yeah. One of them probably should have gone for 6. But they were tipped up. Like we say in this room, you got to be lucky as much as you got to be good. Saying all that, the defense is horrible. I mean, the defense was carved up for 150 yards on the ground. They made Kenny Pickett look like Brett Favre. It's a disaster what's happening here. And I blame it all on Zach Taylor. I blame it all on the coaching staff because there's just no way in hell that you can – again, and I say the defense played like trash. They only allowed 16 points, to be fair. If you can't score 17 in an NFL football game with Jake Browning and Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, we got issues, and we have issues. I said on this show a couple weeks ago, Zach Taylor, should he be on the hot seat if the Bengals miss the postseason? If they don't win a game here, down the stretch, if they don't win a single game with Jake Browning under center in this roster, he should be on the hot seat. He should be on the hot seat. We've challenged his play calling year after year. Every once in a while, he shows flashes of running a good scheme, some good plays, a good drive every now and then. But a large majority of Zach Taylor's offense has been bad. Joe Burrow masks every single problem that we have. And that's why you pay him $275 million, because without Joe Burrow, this team's a bottom 5 team in the NFL. That's how bad this team is right now. So we'll see. We'll see where we go. We'll see if Zach Taylor can draw something up here in the last 6 games. Because if we lose out, it's time to go. Or at least he has to give up the play calling. But I don't know how you do that. Hey, Zach, give up your play calling. You can stay head coach. You just have to give up what you want to do. So I don't know how that conversation works with Zach Taylor.
And to your point about if they lose out, we got to have a serious conversation. You could say, oh, but the Bengals are playing with a backup quarterback. 5 of the 7-game stretch are going to be backup quarterbacks.
Yep.
And I'm including Kenny Pickett as backup quarterback because he pretty much is. Because you're going to see Josh Dobbs, you're going to see DTR or PJ Walker out there. You're going to see Gardner Minshew.
Yep.
The only 2 legit quarterbacks you play are Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes. So 5 of those last 7 games of Jake Browning are going to be against bad quarterbacks. You should be able to win at least one.
Trace, your thoughts on this
It's tough.
Bengal
This
performance
is
yesterday?
walking a tightrope right now because I think that, you say one thing definitively and it almost makes you sound like you're completely trashing one side or the other. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's in the middle somewhere between Zach Taylor being incompetent when it comes to trying to formulate a game plan that allows his team to have the better chance to win. It is coincidental at times when you got a guy like Matt Canada on the other side that we've not talked about. He gets fired. And then it just so happens to magically the first game back, the Steelers, go for over 400 yards for the first time in 60 games. So this whole notion sometimes that, the coaches always know more than the fans. And, for the vast majority of the time, yes, that's true. I'm not here to suggest that the coaches don't know anything. But I do think coaches get stuck in their ways sometimes. I think coaches want to bite down like we do in here. We'll have a take. You've been defending Irv Smith Jr. or whatever the hell that guy's name is because he's never on the broadcast for weeks. No, listen.
You went on like a
talk about
25-minute rant.
We do the same thing in here. We bite down on a take. We want to be right about it. When inevitably at some point you're probably off base. You need to adapt. And at some point you'd like to think that maybe Zach Taylor and the offensive system as a whole will realize, okay, maybe what we're doing here isn't giving us the best chance to win. There's some truth in that. There's some truth in the fact that Jake Browning obviously is not Joe Burrow. And there's also some truth, and again, this is the scariest of them all, that the Bengals roster is just not as good as many have claimed it to be. And Joe Burrow, maybe you could say he's the reason as to why it's masked a lot of that. I think some of the fact is that you lost 2 good safeties. You add in the fact that a lot of these guys get older, and the NFL's tough. You guys are really good one year, and then the next year they're not as good as they were. This isn't like the NBA superstars where they play for 12 years and they're good every single year, or even Major League Baseball at times where you get 4 or 5 great seasons. The NFL's different. It's not for long, and all of those things combined add up to where the Bengals are at. And the scariest part is that I know it sounds like you're being a troll when you say this, but it's truth. If you look at the NFL as a whole and you take away some of these quarterbacks from some of these teams that we all want to make fun of, and I'll use the Browns again as the example, you put Jake Browning on the Browns, guys, and they're going to probably make the playoffs, and they can make some noise in the playoffs. Right. Because they have an elite roster. They're missing a big key ingredient piece. You put Joe Burrow on the Browns, and you could arguably say they are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's my main point in all of this, is that ultimately it's a combination of a lot of things, but Zach Taylor, he might get exposed, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because at some point continuity matters, like Reed said too. So I don't know. It's a tough spot to be.
My turn.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you didn't say
What do you
anything.
think? I'm looking at you just because you're handsome? I mean, come on. Let's go.
Thank you, Thom.
You are handsome. You look very handsome today.
Yeah, all these guys have said really great points today. I'm just as disappointed in the Bengals and the game plan going into this game. It really just seems like Zach just, like Trace said, is stuck in his way, wants to throw all over the place. And they've forgotten their roots and what made this offense really great. It was that they could not just beat you throwing the ball, but that they could run on you. And I don't know if you guys remember the 2021 Super Bowl, that run that they had. I mean, Joe Mixon was one of the best running backs in the league that year. There was 2 games in particular, one against the Steelers, where he had over 30 yards or 30 carries and over 100-something yards, and they just, rode on his back. They didn't do that this time. Only 8 carries, only 8 tries. And, yeah, people might say that's only 2 yards a carry of the 16 yards that he got. Well, he gets one screenplay and takes it for 40 yards. He is literally Joe Mixon is literally the best player, I could argue, on the Bengals roster on offense today.
Well, not better than Chase. But
I could make the argument. I could make the argument because he doesn't get enough opportunities to make a difference.
That's fair. That's fair.
Was Zach Taylor throwing the offensive line under the bus? Was that what he was? Was that his attempt? Do it like when you come to the press conference, you're like, people are going to think this is on, Joe Mixon, blah blah blah, which nobody was, by the way. Which I don't know where he comes up with that. But my point, Thom, is like, whose fault is it? It's and the Steelers are good too. Like, let's not sit here and act like the Steelers aren't bad. We all know that.
Good.
But you can't come in the press conference and be like, well, it's the Steelers. Thom, they're in your division. You got to find a way to beat them by beating them. Like, are you worried when you go into a game? Do you think the Chiefs are ever worried about the other team's like best attribute, or you think they're just like, what, we're going to do what we do, and we're going to basically enforce our will on them?
To go off your point, I do believe that there's multiple parts of blame, right? They're out of the whole pie, right? I think 50% of it goes to the coaching staff. 25% of it goes to the offensive line. I could point to one play in particular that we're still having communication errors.
I know what you're
that
talking
Jonah
about.
Williams and Drew Sample, miscommunication, giving up that sack for TJ Watt to go straight in there and crush them. I mean, what are we doing? We're more than halfway through the season. We're still giving up sacks like that? That's unacceptable.
How does TJ Watt ever go unblocked
Well, I was
in a
listening
National
to Dave,
Football League game?
I was listening to Dave Lapham, former great offensive lineman, on the radio
Right.
when that play happened. And he said, look, he said, you're taught to block from the inside out because the inside has a shorter line to the quarterback. But this is TJ Watt. I mean, this is he became the second player in the history of the NFL. The other one's named Reggie White, to have over 90 sacks in his first 100 career games. This isn't some stiff. And he goes untouched to your quarterback. Your question about the line. Excellent question. Is he throwing him in front of the bus? Maybe he is. But why not just come out and say it? Why not just come out and say it? Because we're too worried about our culture. Oh, God, don't hurt anybody's feelings. Oh, my God. Oh, call somebody out. Seriously. If that's what you're doing, and I don't know if that's what he's doing, Trace just asked a question. I'm just reacting to the question. If he's throwing him in front of the bus, kick him right in front of that bad boy. Pow! At least somebody would hit something at that point.
Yeah,
right?
At least light a fire under their ass. Maybe that'll get them in gear.
That's what I'm saying. You've been watching this tired act for now 11 weeks. They are the worst rushing team in the National Football League. You want to say they played the Steelers? I'll give you that. Steelers are a great defensive team. You want to say they've played the Browns? I'll give you that. That was the first game of the year. But what about all the other games? Why are they throwing the ball 50 times against the Rams? Perhaps they know something the rest of us, it's taken us a while to figure it out. 11 games, and you average 75 rushing yards per per game. I can't buy into that. Because we talked about it yesterday when we were down on the banks. We wondered. It was the most talked about topic we had up there. What was this offense in a coaching staff that is primarily led by offensive-minded coaches? Zach Taylor, former offensive coordinator. Brian Callahan, offensive background. The quarterback's close, pitcher, right? Those are the guys that are supposed to be these masterminds on offense. And yesterday, after 10 days, that's what we get.